All right, welcome to the back deck. Well, why don't we start out today with a little bit of trivia? You want some trivia? I'm a geek. You know this if you've heard more than three things I've ever said. And is one of the things I pay attention to, and bothers me actually, is chapter lengths and divisions in the Bible. You've been at it so long, you'll notice weird things. And so last night I actually sat down and did the math. I've got a Bible that I've had for 20, 30 years, probably over 30. And the way it's laid out, it's great if I want to do, um, like, if I want to do a reading plan, I'll use that one because it doesn't have a lot of notes. It doesn't have a lot of introductions. It's just here's the words of the Bible. Just boom. So I'll do reading plans with it. And anyway, last night I'm going, how long are the chapters in different books of the Bible? Because they do vary. A guy named Stephen Langton actually divided the Bible into chapters in 1205. So 1200, about 1100 years after it was written, he divided it into chapters. But it seemed to me like he was really inconsistent about how he did it and where he did it. So I did it last night. I did some checking, and if you go to I just used the number of pages per chapter in this one specific Bible, which I think is a good touchstone for the idea. And the book of Matthew in this Bible, it's about one page per chapter, just slightly under. The book of Jeremiah is just slightly over one page per chapter, so about the same thing. But if you ever notice the book of Luke has these huge humongous it's like Stephen Langton got tired of dividing it into chapters, just going, like, and it's well over a page, 1.25 pages per chapter. I hope this is exciting stuff for you, right? But here's where I'm getting at. Luke is 1.25 pages per chapter. The book of Revelation is 0.64 pages per chapter, which means a chapter in Revelation is half the length of a chapter in Luke. Now, I like the way I like shorter chapters myself, so I don't like the way he did Luke. I like the way he did Revelation. But the one reason I bring that up is we're in Revelation 15 today, and Revelation 15 is only 8 verses long, and frankly, it's simply the preface to the next chapter. All it is the introduction to what's going to happen in chapter 16, which is a lot. Chapter 15 is just, okay, let's get this warmed up. We're just getting started in chapter 15 with what happens, and then it breaks and goes to chapter 16 for the real action. So we're going to do chapter 15 in one day easily, and we really just got to combine them together. So anyway, we're at chapter 15. All heaven's about to break loose on earth. It's going to get crazy in the next chapter. It's been crazy. It's going to go to the apex of crazy in the next chapter. And so this is a setup for that, a preface, as it were. And just I want to make sure that we get a run at it because we're starting something new again. We're going to make sure we understand how it fits into the old. One of the things I've said repeatedly in the book of Revelation is how important it is to see the big picture, to sense the big picture, to let it speak to you. I believe very strongly that when you try to analyze the book of Revelation, overanalyzing it is very confusing. But if you just experience it, it's very enlightening. Okay? And one of the things that happens is it's hard to put things in order. It's hard to decide what's happening when and where's happening. For instance, last week we ended with the judgment, and there was a judgment that was compared to a wheat judgment, and there was a judgment that was compared to a grape harvest. Now, obviously, that's not a separate thing because what's come. So it's like, where does all this fit together? And it also is confusing a little bit if you try to overanalyze it, because how the book goes. Let's get a running start into chapter 15. We have the letters to the introduction, the letters to the 7 churches, and then John's brought to heaven. And then there's the huge scene at the very beginning, very early in the book, where there's this scroll of God's judgment that's brought out, and no one can open the seals. No one can open the seals that are on the scroll until the Lamb, Jesus Christ, shows up. And then when he does that, the seal judgments break out. And there's 7 seals that are open. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They get to number 6. There's a big segue to other stuff for a while. And then when the 7th seal is open, all the 7th seal does is turn loose the 7 trumpets. And the first 6 trumpets go, bah, 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 and something happens with each trumpet. And then we get to the seventh trumpet, and there's this pause, and there's these other stories that are brought in. And then finally, the seventh trumpet is blown. And then we have a major excursus where we talk about the woman coming down, the woman who is the church giving birth, and it's the dragon and the beasts and the Antichrist, and all that stuff goes rolling through. And then into chapter 14, we're reintroduced to the concept of judgment. And now chapter 15, we've got the introduction to the bowl judgment or the cup judgment. Depends on how you want to view that. And I was thinking about this morning, and that at the very beginning it starts with the seals, and as the seals are unleashed, there are certain things. And a seal, if you think about it, a scroll and a seal is a bookmark / lock. Okay, and a seal, when you unlock the seal and open a seal, it reveals something. Now, normally with a trumpet, the second wave, a trumpet announces something. Okay, so judgment is revealed, then judgment is announced. It's one thing to reveal something, but it can be way, way, way in the future. But when you trumpet it, it's getting really close. You're announcing it. But the bowl or the cup judgment, when the bowls or cups are poured out, that's when it's not just announced, it's pronounced. Judgment actually begins with this. And so this is a very special set when the 7 bowls or the 7 cups are about to be unleashed. So, without further ado, that was the preface to us looking at the preface to the 7 bowl or cup judgment. So, Revelation 15, verse 1. I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign. And remember, throughout Revelation, he'll frequently start a new section with, and I saw. Okay? A lot of times I heard and I saw, but this one's the same basic concept. I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign. 7 angels with the 7 last plagues. And 7's the number of completion, so this is ultimate, okay? Last, because with them God's wrath is completed. So this is going to be the big thing. This is the big picture. This is the finale is kicking in, okay? And I saw what looked like a sea of glass glowing with fire. So he looks, and there's a sea of glass, and we've seen this before back in chapter 4. But in 4, it was clear as crystal. It was sea of glass, clear as crystal. Now it's glowing with fire. And fire is judgment. There is judgment either looming and the fire is in the sea, or there is judgment taking place. And we see the fire of judgment reflected in the sea. Either way, ominous things are happening. There is the sea of glass, which is before the throne. And so it echoes that Revelation 4:6, which talks about that sea of glass, which says, let me read it to you. In Revelation 4:6, says, in the front of the throne there was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. It's not red yet, not judgment yet. And in the center of the throne, around the throne, were 4 living creatures, and they were covered with eyes in front and in back. And now we're echoing something else. We're going all the way back to Ezekiel. Remember the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1, starts out with the wheel within a wheel. But there is a sea, and there are the people carrying the throne, and God is on the throne. And and there's similar imagery. So we're all pulling this in. We are in the presence of God, and there is the sea of glass right there. And there's another echo, because it'll next say that standing beside the sea, those who have been victorious over the beast and its image and over the number of its name. So we've got the sea, and we've got people beside the sea who have been victorious. And now we've got the second major echo. We've got from Revelation 4 echo back into Ezekiel. And now we've got this one. And this is really important, because this makes us think, if we look at both this whole chapter, it makes us think about the Exodus, where Moses leads the people out, and they come in Exodus chapter 14, and they leave Pharaoh's presence, and the people are leaving, and all hundreds of thousands of them have come to the Red Sea, and they're standing beside the Red Sea, and they're blocked. And Pharaoh's army is coming, and then God does a miraculous sign, and the water opens up, and the people march through like on dry land. And then when Pharaoh's army tries to come through, the water collapses back on them, on Pharaoh's army. And part of me wonders if there's enough people in Pharaoh's army to make the water red. Red Sea, probably not. But anyway, it is a Red Sea, and fire red. So anyway, they march through, the water collapses back on them, and there they are standing victorious on the other side by the sea. And then, just like in this one, they then sing a song of praise to God. Moses writes a song for them, and they sing it. So here we have all these people beside this sea of glass, echoing what's happened earlier in Revelation, but also echoing all the way back to the beginning, when God first rescues his people and brings his people out. And here he's brought his people out. But there's a distinction. It says, standing beside the sea, those who had been victorious over the beast and its image and over the number of its name. Now, if we remember back the last couple chapters, what does victorious over the beast mean? It doesn't mean you defeated the beast. The beast is still there. We've not seen anything bad happen to the beast to speak, well, not to speak of much yet. There's judgment coming. The judgment has basically come, but they didn't do it. To be victorious over the beast most of the time meant you were martyred, you were persecuted, and you were killed for your faith. So these are the people who have been killed for their faith, and they are standing beside the sea of glass as judgment is pronounced. And God says, okay, you look at the world, and you see something, and you think you see something, and you think you see it the way it really is. And to put it in real specifics, you look and you see this person seems to have power. These people seem to have power. This idea seems to be a dominant idea. And he's saying that that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what seems to be dominant in your culture, because what seems to be dominant changes from culture to culture. And these people didn't seem to be dominant. If you go back and look when these people are there battling with the beast, they seemed from the outside, from people living on earth at that time, they seem to be losers. They're the ones who won't accept the number of the beast, and they are the ones who are martyred for that. They lose, it looks like. But God's saying, no, 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 no. Don't look on, like if you go back to David, when God is looking for King David, God brings David, Samuel is going through all of Jesse's children, looking for the king, the next king. And he goes, not that one, and not that one, and not that one. And he gets all the way to number 8 to David. And God says, that one. And that one's the young one, and that one's the short one, and that's the runt of the litter. And God tells Samuel, don't look on outward appearances, for God looks at the heart. And always there is this, what it looks like in the culture you're living in, what it looks like in the world you're living in, and there is what is real. And what is real is what God sees. So God looks at the martyrs, looks at the people who gave their life as they stood up to the beast, as they stood up to the governmental authority. I'm not calling for revolution here. I'm just saying when the government, when the powers that be say to do things that are decidedly against our standards, when they ask us to deny our faith, we stand up to those. And this idea that means we're always going to look like we're winning is not the case. Nero, I've said this before, you've heard it before probably. Nero would take Christians and put them on stakes and burn them for his parties, to light his parties, to light pathways. Nero burned Christians to light the pathways. Roman emperors would take Christians and throw them in the Colosseum and let them be killed by wild beasts. And if you looked on it from the outside, who was the winner and who was the loser? Nero was the winner. If you looked at it from a human perspective, Nero was the winner, Caesar was the winner, the Christians were the losers. And God says, no, they are victorious over the beast and his number of his name, not because they won on earth, but because they stood up on earth and earned, at some sense, earned the right to be called children of God. Now, you don't become a child of God by earning it, but they reflected who they are in Christ by the way they stood up to the beast. And so now we've got the sea, and they've been rescued out of that, rescued often by their deaths. Death was the rescue for them, okay? And they're rescued, and they're by the sea, and then it says they had harps given them by God, and that's a really cool image, right? Because they've got the harps. They didn't earn the harps. God gave them the harps, right? Salvation isn't something that you earn. Even if you're a martyr, you didn't earn salvation. You had salvation as a gift, and then you suffer, and that has nothing to, they're not that related to each other. You're given the harp, and they're given the harp and sang the song of God's servant Moses and the Lamb. In case you didn't want to have it already tied it back to Exodus chapter 14 and 15 with them marching through the dried Red Sea and singing a song on the other side. He's saying, now they're going to sing the song of Moses. And so let me just read this song. It's a pretty cool little short song. Okay. Great and marvelous are your deeds, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, King of the nations. Okay. And I like to do parallelism. Great and mighty are your deeds, just and true are your ways. Great and mighty, just and true. So if you want to be great and mighty, you have to be just and true. Those are tied together. You can't be great and mighty and not just and true, which, by the way, again, is the opposite of the way the world views it, right? Right? because you can be great and mighty in the world's eyes, in our world system's eyes. You can be great and mighty and not be just and true. Okay, honesty doesn't have to be part of it. Justice doesn't have to be part of it. You can still be great and mighty, but God's true great and mighty is always just and true. Okay, and that makes him Lord Almighty and King of the nations. Who will not fear you, Lord, and bring glory to your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you, for your righteous acts have been revealed. Revelation. God is revealing his righteous acts, and the world's about to get flipped. Okay? We've seen it coming. It's happening in some sense. As the people who seem to be powerful and have been overwhelming in some ways, the people who seem to be weak, and God's going to flip that. And the powerful people are become powerless as the people who seemed weak, the martyrs, the ones who gave their life for Christ, the weakest have become greatest. He who is first will be last. And this is coming to fruition finally as the backwards economy of God is about to be played out in judgment. And that whole song is just, if you ever want to do a study on it, that song that's in there is just amazingly tied throughout the Old Testament. The verse 4 is directly from Jeremiah 10:7, who should not revere you, King of the nations. And Jeremiah, just to give you a little echo back to there, Jeremiah's talking about the worship of idols. And what have we found throughout Revelation? We're being called, we can either worship God or we can worship the idols that are brought before us, including the idol of government and power. Okay, because that's what they're drawn to. The beasts are about the idol of government, the idol of power, the idol of economics, the idol of money and power. So, nope, flip it. Okay, don't worship that idol. Worship the idol of the Lamb of God slain from the foundation of the world, the non-idol of the Lamb of God slain from the foundation of the world. Worship the true God who uses his power to help those who don't have it. Okay, make sure we got that, okay? And then, now this is cool, and I'm going to take this in a weird place, and you're going to be okay with it, I think. Okay, after this, and I looked and saw in heaven the temple, that is the tabernacle of the covenant law, and it was open. And throughout Revelation, John seems to like the tabernacle, the portable worship place, more than he liked the temple. So he's just talking about the tabernacle, which is where the Ark of the Covenant is, which is the Holy of Holies. And then this. I'm going to read it once, and I'm going to describe it to you, and then I'm going to read it again, okay? Out of the temple came the 7 angels with the 7 plagues. They were dressed in clean, shining linen, and wore golden sashes around their chests. Then one of the 4 living creatures gave to the 7 angels 7 golden bowls filled with the wrath of God, who lives forever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke, and from the glory of God, and from his power, and no one could enter the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were complete. And that there's a lot of precedence in the Old Testament to God filling the temple area or the tabernacle area with his presence to such an extent that nobody could come in or out. It barred everybody. So this is another case where God's presence and power is so thick that no one could come in or out. But the angels have marched out, and I just find this interesting and fun. This is fun. This is a fun picture, because if you're not careful, you see sashes and robes. Let me picture this differently. You've got the 7 angels, and the 7 angels come out, and then there's a person or it's actually another angel, who hands them, well, I think it's one of the 4 living creatures, sorry. One of the 4 living creatures hands each of them the bowl or the cup of wrath that is coming, of the judgment. And try to picture it this way, like in not every other movie, in a lot of movies you've seen. Instead of wearing robes and sashes, because we don't ever wear robes and sashes, they lived in a culture where wearing a robes were called clothes. Okay, that's what they wore. It was normal, but it's a fancy robe. It's a special robe with a sash. Picture 7 angels. It's the temple is filled with smoke, thick smoke, and then out step 7 angels. But we'll put them in our terms. They're wearing black suits, white shirts, black ties, black sunglasses. And they come strutting out. In the background, there's music playing as the martyrs are singing their worship song, but they've got harps. Now, we don't do harps. What do we play? Guitars. That's what we play. We play electric guitars. So there's the smoke is there, and out step 7 angels in their black suits with the black tie and the white shirt, maybe a hat, and the black sunglasses. And they step up, and ZZ Top is playing in the background as they step out. It's a praise song to ZZ Top music. And they step out, and one of the 4 creatures hands them their weapon, their bowl of wrath. And now they go forth to bring forth the ultimate judgment of God. See, we have to put it in our perspective. Did you like that picture? Did you like that picture? I like that picture. And so next week, next time we get together, we're going to be going into the bowl judgments or the cup judgments. We're going to watch God pour out his wrath on earth. And we've got our men in black, our 7 men in black angels ready to pour it out on them. Okay? So, got to wait a week? That's okay. You'll make it. Next week we'll go into the bowl judgments. And you guys have a great week.